Ladies and gentlemen, if you were not aware, Gamescom has just come and gone, and as such, there's been a lot of new games being announced, a lot of trailers shown. I think the big news that came out of it was that opening night live, the Jeff Keighley show, and how that went. So I think we should just jump into it. Adam, let's get started real quick with just the games that we saw. I figure what we could do is we can talk about the big games that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in, and then talk about some of the smaller ones that may have piqued our interest. And then we can kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive in the show as a whole. What do you think?
I'm down for whatever.
Perfect. So let's start exactly where Gamescom opening night live started. Oh, and before we get started, the reason why we're not doing Xbox is I feel like a lot of the big Xbox announcements were in the opening night live. So overall, that show was a little bit more quiet, a little bit more subdued, less big news and more deep dives into stuff that we are already expecting. So that's why we're not covering that one. So first one that they started up with was Saints Row Remaster, Remake.
Oh, it's a complete reboot. It has nothing to do with the original franchise.
And that's I just wasn't sure what we were calling it. So Saints Row Reboot.
I think it's Saints Row Reboot, but at this point it looks like the title is just Saints Row unless they add something to the title after.
No, I think it's 100% just called Saints Row. I'm just referring to the Saints Row Reboot just so that people aren't like, what, that game from like early 2000s? Yeah, that game's back.
I'm okay with that game coming back. Let's do it.
So this game sort of takes place not really, like, I think it's very loosely, if at all, connected to the original games. It's much more grounded. You're no longer the president fighting aliens with superpowers. I get the impression you're sort of a small up and coming crew in the area. I think it's called Santa Aleso. And what you're doing there is you're like a small group kind of trying to make your name against the other groups that are kind of taking place in this area. Adam, what did you think of the game? The trailer, we kind of saw more of a cinematic trailer than we saw actual gameplay. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything shown that's going to tell me if it's going to be anything different. Like, I don't know how the driving's looking like, what the shooting's going to look like. I mean, there's some weapons, but they don't show anything too crazy. I know that sounds crazy when we talk about how these crazy rocket launchers they have, but believe me, this is nothing compared to what Saints Row's default weapons are. So, just from the trailer as it stands, it really does feel like they're going back to Saints Row 1 in terms of starting out, you're getting your footing into a new area, you're trying to become an actual gang with, some sort of, a level of respect that people have to be fearful of. Very much like the original game was. And obviously, they can go however they want after that. They can do the exact same thing again, where they slowly work towards you becoming the leader of the whole fucking planet. Like, they can go through this all over again, and there is no reason for us to believe that this can be anything other than an alternate dimension because it's Saints Row. No such idea is a bad idea with them, so they can do whatever they feel like. Because, I mean, if you try to go with the canon of this game, technically the Earth has been destroyed, so there's not really anywhere else to be. So either this is during the original game in a whole other area, or this is legitimately just like alternate universe stuff, so it's its own world now. So don't worry about the original 4 games, which I'm kind of leaning in that because you kind of get into some real crazy stuff if you try to mix the two. But then again, like I said, Saints Row has never said no to anything, so they could always try.
Yeah, they are legitimately of the idea that no idea is a bad idea. And watching the trailer, like I think that they're getting that nice balance. Like they're not going super gritty, super realistic, like a Watchdog kind of feel. Like it does feel more, it still feels wacky, like they're driving a car on top of like a roof and like what sort of seems like an imagined kind of Las Vegas area. It's still over the top, it's still fantastic, it's still gonna be like, I get the impression, very lighthearted and fun, but it's not gonna be over the top, wacky and zany.
Well, it was the mistake they made the first time, because the original game was not nearly what we expect from Saints Row now. They made that specifically to try to compete with GTA, and it failed, so they tried to do one more run of it, but they tried to be a little bit more over the top, and it worked, and that's what's gotten, especially the third and fourth games, which are just ridiculous. So
yeah.
I think what they figure now is, now that they know what their bread and butter is, what they're good at, now they're starting with a fresh slate. They can do whatever they want and have some fun with it, rather than, starting on a really weird tone. I think now they have an opportunity to really cement themselves with a brand new, bit of the series, brand new world, clean slate, nothing to tone it with, or not to tone it with, nothing to compare it to. and then just go balls to the wall without going like the crazy superhero aliens in outer space like route right away. Like you can do the fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can even find ways to do these kind of things in like dream missions or like these weird like flashbacks
DLC.
or whatever. Yeah, there's a million different ways you can go about it. But now they're getting the chance to reattach the initial ideas of what it was, which was just GTA on all the good drugs, which is what Yakuza is, but Japanese. So now this is the English Yakuza, basically.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good example and a really good analogy. So that one comes out February 25th. Next, they came out with Midnight Suns. This is a XCOM style Marvel game. So kind of neat, seems cool. XCOM style. The interesting thing is it doesn't look like it's leaning into the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of costumes and everything. It looks like it's more taking its own little art style. You're going to be building your own little character to be kind of playing alongside them. Adam, what did you think?
I would have loved gameplay just because I want to know how they're going to do an XCOM like game with superheroes, because that's my curiosity. Because I mean, we know classes with XCOM. You have guys who use snipers, you have guys who use rocket launchers or shotguns or assault rifles, but now you have Wolverine and you have Iron Man and you have Blade and you have Doctor Strange. So you get to that point of like, okay, like how is this actually going to work? You know,
Mm-hmm.
how is this good? Like, how is it going to interact with the enemies? Like, how is it going to be able to translate on how they move on the field? What's the range of their powers going to be like? I know that they can dumb it down so it's not too complicated. It's more just my brain circulating, being like, man, how would I use Doctor Strange in XCOM? Like, I'm thinking of time powers in a military strategy game. My brain is like trying to comprehend how it's all going to work together. I trust the team to do a good job because anything that's come out with the XCOM label on it has been fantastic. So I expect them to figure out a pretty good way to make it balanced, and I'm not going to complain otherwise. I'm a little disappointed that, like, you know, there are some omissions to the team. Like, I was really sad to not see any sort of a Spider-Man thing in there, but I mean, I know that Sony has the license specifically, so it's a little bit more complicated.
He still has to he still has to show up in Avengers. So
that's true. That is also a thing that Jeez, don't
Spider-Man's late to the party.
Running joke.
Yeah.
But no, like the gist of what I saw, like there's nothing this cinematic trailer is going to do to get me any more excited than already the concept in my head is doing. It's just nice to now know that it exists and what it's starting to look like, and the fact that it's more of an original sort of aesthetic rather than just taking off every cliche costume out there. I'm pretty happy about that because it means we're going to get something a little different rather than, you know, the same costumes, the same shtick. You know, here's this guy, you're fighting him, you fight a bunch of, you know, soldiers in between that. No, it seems like they're going a much more like interesting route rather than what we come to expect from, say, the last Avengers game that came out, which was as basic bitch as you could possibly get in terms of a story. So
yeah, I think it was a smart move on their part, taking a whole different and I think they probably learned this from like the Avengers game, is that don't, like, if you're gonna not make it like look like the cinematic universe, completely avoid it and distinguish yourself as much as possible. And I think that was a good call on their part. I like the fact that it's an XCOM game. I feel like that is a way to kind of make it feel fresh and new. I don't know.
Especially with that license, like that's what kind of gets my attention too. It's because it's not like a massive beat 'em up game. It's not like an action adventure game. It's something completely different. Kind of like what the Mario Rabbids game was. You know, in a similar light, like it's so out of the blue and so like off the charts that you can't help but be interested. So same with Gears Tactics. Like I like it when games that we're normally used to seeing in one specific light suddenly do something different, because it just means we're getting something a little bit different from the norm, which I'll take any crack at. Like Yakuza's like, hey, we're gonna make a JRPG now. I'm like, you have my attention. You're doing something completely fresh. Like I'm down for not seeing the same, you're Iron Man, go punch stuff.
Your Iron Man, shoot the lasers. Thor whips his hammer around. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. For me, I'm interested. I'm open to looking at it, but like, I don't know. I'm burnt out of the Marvel franchise. I'm burnt out of the Marvel principle. Like, not principle. I'm burnt out of Marvel, and it doesn't excite me anymore to see a Marvel game. That being said, I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man's the one exception who gets a pass on that, but for the most part, that whole Avengers Marvel collective universe is just doesn't do anything for me at this point.
I mean, I'm excited because it's XCOM, and they could have released anything they wanted with the XCOM name on it, and it would be just as interesting to me. But the fact that they just added Marvel to it just means like, okay, so it's XCOM, but something completely different from what we normally get. I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah.
Have you ever played an XCOM game before?
I have not. I played something similar, I think, at one point, but no, I've never really gotten into an XCOM game. So I'm excited. I'm excited to try it. I know that they've always been really they seem cool and interesting, but they also seem very, I don't know.
If you ever see it go on sale for like super stupid cheap on Steam, sometimes check out XCOM Chimera Squad because it's about the easiest bridge because it's relatively short. Okay. And it's also like its newest one, so they've got a couple of extra ideas in there instead of it just being straight go down this grid, kill thing, don't get shot. This time it's more like, okay, now there's breaching and a little bit more of that. And there's some more like, I think there's some more like powers and stuff to it because it's now when the aliens and humans are coexisting. So there's a little more interest. So it's almost like a kind of a peek of what Midnight Suns could be. I got to go back and actually play a bunch of it because I tried to play it way back before I got this PC, so my laptop couldn't handle it. I still got to go back and actually try to run through it again. So
cool.
But like the little bit that I did try of it, I loved it because I'm already big on XCOM, and then I decided to make it a little bit crazier, which I was down for because, XCOM's really good, but after, 2 full runs of the same military strategy, eventually you want to do something a little bit different.
Yeah. No, I think the XCOM aspect is what intrigues me the most. The Marvel aspect isn't so much, but yeah, I'd need to try the XCOM games. They do seem something I'd be interested in. That one's going to be coming. Oh, and the gameplay, we're going to get a gameplay tomorrow, actually. So September 1st.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So that's perfect.
Yeah. So by the time you're listening to this episode, it might already be a moot point and we'll know exactly what it looks like. But yeah. Next one they talked about was Call of Duty Vanguard. This is the third time in 3 weeks that we've talked about Call of Duty.
It can't escape.
No, it is now just a regular staple here. It is the new regular reference. Move aside Cyberpunk. So they showed us a gameplay single player of Stalingrad where you're playing as this female sniper kind of walking through. Adam, what's your initial thoughts when you saw this? What were you thinking?
I thought, okay, it's just a really good looking campaign mode. It's nothing new to me. It's not. I mean, there's a little bit more with the climbing aspect of stuff, which I thought was interesting, but I know it's mostly scripted anyway, so it didn't exactly make me go, oh, I feel like this is more open-ended. I'm like, no, it's just you have to go this way. It's just going to show it, whatever. It's not that big a deal. It looks fine. Like, again, like I said on the last show, I'm not really interested in this at full price at this point because I'm probably only going to play this and maybe try the multiplayer a tiny bit, but because I don't have friends that play it a lot anymore, there's no point in it. Yeah. But like what I saw, I'm like, yeah, it's what I've expected Call of Duty campaigns to be in. They're very set piecey, they're very intense, it's over the top like a Michael Bay movie. And now it's looking a lot sharper, a lot prettier, and hopefully, 60 frames per second, which I won't complain at that point. It's still something that I'm probably not gonna, go out of my way to get unless I can find a way to get it for under $30, because that's about as much as I value these campaigns at, given how long they are.
Yeah, I'm somewhat with you there. Like I was kind of blown away. Like it looks incredible. Like the artistic directions they have with this, like the colors and how they play out, like it looks incredible. It looks amazing. The, ray tracing, HDR, all that kind of stuff there looks awesome. I really like it. This one really intrigues me. Like, like I said, I'm a sucker for the World War II aesthetic. And so that really appeals to me. And this kind of seems really neat. Like, I don't know what the rest of the gameplay is going to be like, but this kind of like creeping around kind of stealthily as much as she is with like a massive gun in her hand is awesome and really appeals to me, and it looks incredible. Like it's one of the best looking trailers I think that they had that day at the show. For me, I'm with you. I think it's gonna be one of those things I'm gonna wait for this to go on sale for like $30 or so. I feel like that's about the sweet spot for this campaign, but it looks incredible and I'm just really happy with, like, it looks awesome. It's the first one that really kind of appeals to me. I also like the aspect that it's not modern day shooter with, radars and like, we're Oscar Mike to the LZ. It's like, okay, like I find that can get a little over the top, and I kind of like where they're going with this one. So this one for me is definitely something that interests me, and I'm gonna check out at some point.
It's a real shame though, because every time I see them like lead off with a cinematic trailer, my brain goes, I know that about like 90% of the people watching this could care less because they want the multiplayer trailer.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a shame on how that's been. We talked about it again last week with how like single player just doesn't really move the needle much for Call of Duty games. I mean, it probably does for a select few, but not as much as it used to. Like Modern Warfare, like 1, 2, and 3, and Black Ops 1 and around 2 is where like everybody was in, whether you were the single player guy or the multiplayer guy, and now they're at the point where it's like, man, I can't be justifying $80 for a 5 to 8 hour campaign when there's all these other games out there that can do it so much better, or especially with some of the free to play options you got, where you got games like Destiny 2, where you have all this time that you can throw into it and all these different worlds, instead of, you know, it just being this really quick story, which more often than not is going to give you a couple of interesting moments. And again, like the history set pieces of World War II in this specific game are going to be really interesting, especially with it having an alternate history kind of kick to it. But again, like every time I watch this, I go, does this trailer sell the game to people? The only thing it can possibly do, I think, to sell most people on the game is that it's the multiplayer fans thinking, oh man, this is what I get to look forward to when I play online. Like this graphic fidelity while I'm like knifing the shit out of people. But like, I don't know. I feel bad because I know how much I love these, but like I'm not the guy that they're selling to anymore, because I can't be bothered to pay $80 and then play this bit and then be done with it. Just doesn't make any sense.
I disagree with you there. I think that they need to advertise the campaign more than they need to advertise the multiplayer, simply because, you know, the multiplayer, you've got a little bit of attrition between, you know, this and like Battlefield in terms of where your players going, but for the most part your Call of Duty players are going to stay with Call of Duty and they're going to move on with you as you go. However, it's the people like you and I who aren't necessarily being brought into the campaign or brought into the multiplayer, where they're like, hey, here's your campaign. Are we going to buy it day one? Probably not, but we're still going to buy it at some point. So,
well, the only argument I would make in terms of that then is like, wouldn't you want to try to sell your game to make it at full price, so that way you're getting the biggest profit out of it? Because if your expectation is, well, we might get people to buy it a lot more when it's like half price, you're probably not making too much of a profit at that point either.
Oh, but I think it's also, I think it's easier to kind of show off a single player game. So now like we're talking about it, which is kind of like what a lot of people are doing, and the people who play multiplayer are seeing with the multiplayer, like this is going to be somewhat what you can expect with the multiplayer. But I think campaigns just show off a little bit better with their set pieces and their scripts and stuff. So I think it's an easy, and now you're going to get more people who do the campaign who might actually say like, yep, I'm actually going to check this one out. I'm going to get this one. So,
yep.
I don't know.
I mean, look, it's more just me going like, it's the guy who reads Twitch chat when he shouldn't be, when he's watching a trailer, just thinking like, I know that most of the people watching this are being like, I don't care. Where's the deathmatch clips? I want to know where I'm going to 360 no scope people.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this looks amazing. It's just, again, like, it doesn't, like, it's expected to give me a release date, and I'm going, I don't care what your release date is, because I ain't getting it on that day. It's more like, oh, okay, that's something neat. Maybe I'll see if it ever drops to 30. Like, I'll put it on my PlayStation wish list. That's about the most I can give to them at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not against them putting the trailer up. I'm always just surprised that they put that up first rather than the multiplayer, because I figure more people are interested in that. So you hook them right away, and then you throw in the campaign trailer later to get people interested. But I don't know. That's why I'm not the advertising guy for Activision, I guess. So
yeah, we're not marketers. Yes, that one's coming out, I think, in November. So I'm excited for that one. We'll see where that one goes. That's also one that usually drops pretty quickly, so I'm not too concerned there.
They're pretty by the book too with the release dates. They always got to have something in the fall.
Yeah, they're pretty consistent. Next, kind of going the different route, or staying with the shooter route, is Halo. So Halo got an announcement, or the release date was announced for December 8th. We kind of got a sort of general trailer into the story campaign, I guess. I don't know. It wasn't super. I don't know. What did the trailer do for you?
Nothing, because Halo's not even on my radar, to be completely honest. I haven't really been interested in Halo since like it went to 360 basically. So for me, like again, it's me on the outside going, I know everybody's looking forward to this, so I'll shut up because it's not for me. In the same vein that like when Last of Us Part 2 for Sony was a big thing, or you know, whenever Nintendo does their big run, like I'm not gonna play any of this stuff, but I'm glad that it's out because it gives people something to look forward to, and that's fine. Does the trailer do anything for me? No, and I don't think it ever will. I don't know if there's anything Halo can really do now that can kind of get me back in the fold. But I imagine for anybody deep into Halo, this probably just gets you more hyped up for something you're already pretty stoked to go after. I don't know if it really like gets anybody else in the door. I think it just kind of further hypes the people up that have been waiting for it for a while now.
Yeah, and this is something that like I've been hearing and people have been talking that like there is some development hell for this game. And we talked about this a while ago and we had lots of comments on that one. But the thing with that concerns me is that this is coming out December 8th. So realistically, 3 months from now. And we still haven't seen any sort of campaign like trailer on like, and even now we're kind of getting this little vignette, but it doesn't really talk about the story too much in terms of what's going on. No gameplay. They announced that the campaign mode is not going to be releasing on December 8th with the rest of the game. So like, I don't know. Like I once again don't want to sound negative. I really hope that this game comes out well, but my concern is that we haven't seen the campaign in action since that botched kind of presentation a little while ago.
Yeah, it's a little bit worrying. I mean, again, you know, we're two Sony guys here that are talking about, you know, a Microsoft property, but I said it from the very beginning when I saw the gameplay trailer. I'm like, okay, like it looks fine, but something just seems off, and I've heard rumors that the development was off, and I really haven't seen anything that tells me to quell it. It just seems like the advertising team is working overtime to try to get some of that image back. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this game's going to suck. I don't think there's any possibility of Halo Infinite being an absolute dumpster fire. I'm just saying, like, because it's taking longer and longer to come out, it's just making that hype grow and grow. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen is when it comes out, there's going to be a lot of people not too happy. Not because, like, the game sucks, but because it's not the expectation that they got. Because there's been so much waiting. It's for the same reason that, like, you know, I'm kind of worried now about Horizon, but I'm kind of not at the same time. But because it keeps getting delayed, you're like, because then you get Cyberpunk vibes there. I just brought Cyberpunk back in as my punching bag as per usual. But, like, anytime that, you know, we always make the whole, oh my god, why am I blanking on his goddamn name? The Mario guy.
Mario?
What's the creator's name? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm an absolute idiot.
Miyamoto?
Thank you. Holy crap. I kept thinking Miyazaki. I'm like, no, that's Studio Ghibli, you idiot. But like we always do the meme.
That's pretty bad to say you can't remember.
I know. That's why I'm like, I should have moved off. Being like, I shouldn't have admitted that I was forgetting.
Guy doesn't even know Miyamoto.
But like, I was at that point that we're all thinking about the meme of like, you know, if a game rushed is never going to be as good as a game that, you know, if you're patient for and you know work it out to it being completed. I'm still sitting here being like, man, we're here in these times now that like when games keep getting delayed, it's generally not for polishing anymore. I've learned from too many other games that I've played that when games are more than like a year on the back burner, that's not because it's like polish. It's because something's probably gone wrong behind the scenes, or like pre-production was a lot longer than it needed to, so they didn't have nearly as much time. Because I can make a list if I need to. Final Fantasy 15, big part of that. Mass Effect Andromeda, big part of that. Cyberpunk, big part of that. You know, and those are some major titles, and they all had the same problem. Pre-production took forever, their development time was cut short, and they couldn't recover.
See, I'm going to counter that, because there's also a number of games I know that did have delays that came out really well. Uncharted 4 was delayed and came out fantastically. The Last of Us, you know, the best game of all time, you know, quote me on it.
How long were the delays? Because I don't personally know. Because I didn't pay attention to either of those.
I mean, it wasn't years, but it was, you know, I think Last of Us bumped from February to like July. So like 5 or 6 months.
Yeah,
like,
but that sounds like polish again. Like
But
Final Fantasy
was one of those
15
where,
was years. Cyberpunk
yeah,
was years. Andromeda was probably years.
yeah. I guess my concern is like I'm not saying a delay in and of itself is concerning because I do think that I don't think there's been a game that has. Well, I guess what I'm saying is the delay isn't necessarily a sign that the game is going to be bad. It sounds like a delay. A delay to me kind of says, "Hey, there was problems with this game, and we've rectified some of those." Not to say that the game is like good, but it's just the game would have been a lot worse if we hadn't taken that time. Like with those extensions. With Halo, my only concern is that they have had those delays and we are getting so close to launch and we haven't seen a lot other than the multiplayer. And that could just be that multiplayer is the focus of Halo, and I would not be surprised if that is the case. But for me, it's kind of like one of those things like, why haven't we seen it? And I feel like that is something that we should see.
Well, at the same time,
And
too, it's not just delays and us not seeing footage. It's delays and the amount of stuff we've heard and has been reported about what's been going on. So that's why I kind of, especially when it comes to Mass Effect and Andromeda, I see very similar things in terms of like how there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that like a lot of people are not too happy, or there's things getting rushed, or there's stuff like just way behind schedule. Like there's a lot of things that I hear that my brain just connects to other games that I've seen that happen to. So I could be completely wrong. This could be a 9 out of 10 classic Halo game. And I won't even say I'll eat crow because I'm not going out here and saying it's going to suck. I'm more just saying I'm worried, just like I've said many times before. I'm just concerned because the signs that I'm seeing are the same signs that I've seen with things that have ended up being absolute, like, not dumpster fires, but like really, really big disappointments. So
yeah, I don't think either of us is saying
Halo
that
Infinite was to come out and be at best a 7 out of 10 on Metacritic, like a 70 on Metacritic, I wouldn't be shocked at this point. But if it also ended up being an 86, I wouldn't be shocked either. Like, both things are possible. It's just usually with something of the pedigree of Halo, you don't expect the 70 option to be as likely as the 85, 86 option.
And I think one of the issues, though, too, is that this is a pinnacle tentpole game for Xbox.
Well,
like,
this is supposed to be their system seller, like when it first came out.
And this should really be what is advertising the power and the capability of Xbox. And like you, I'm not advocating yet. Like, yes, I am a Sony pony, but the first thing is I'm a gamer and I want games to be good. I want games to be awesome. I want people to enjoy them. And that's all I want. Like, in reality, like, I just have concerns of what we've seen does not give me confidence that Halo is going to be the amazing game that it should be and that it needs to be. Do I think that is going to like cause Halo to get, cut or something? No. Like, I think the multiplayer is going to be awesome, but it is not going to be, like you said, it has a lot of expectations riding on it, and there's a lot that is riding on this game, and I don't know if it's going to necessarily deliver. The other thing I found is that like the cinematic trailer itself didn't look super impressive to me in terms of like its graphical fidelity, like especially coming off of something like Call of Duty Vanguard. Like that looked incredible, looked next gen. And Halo kind of felt a little less so. Like it didn't have that polish and that gleam to it. Was it an artistic choice? Maybe, but I always kind of thought that Halo was, I don't know. I always thought it was a little bit more of a performance kind of powerhouse in terms of what it does, and this one just didn't reflect that for me.
Yeah. I mean, again, we both could be way off. This could be a really great game, and all the Microsoft fanboys are just going to go out there and be like, "See, you Sony nerds don't know what you're talking about." I mean, I'm
hoping that they are right. Like, I don't want to be accurate in saying that Halo is in trouble or that it will not meet people's expectations. I want to be wrong with that.
Yeah, we want Halo Infinite to be a Game of the Year candidate, so that way Sony doesn't get, cocky. We don't want them to start like getting lax on their morals.
Yeah, as a Sony fanboy, the one thing that is the worst thing for Sony is to be unchallenged, and that like Sony needs Xbox.
Oh, have we learned what happens when they're unchallenged?
Yeah. The best thing for Sony is a healthy Xbox, and so I don't want Sony to ever feel comfortable. Like I want them to constantly feel like they have to impress me. So no, I even have a vested interest as a Sony fanboy for Xbox and like Halo to do well. So, last things on Halo, they announced the Xbox Elite controller and the Halo Special Edition Series X. Honestly, that console looks dope. Like, if I was to get a Series X at some point, I would like to have that console.
Oh, the only thing that went through my head was I'm not gonna buy it, but if a Horizon PS5 existed, I would be damn close.
No, I like it's a nice looking unit, and
I'm actually surprised we haven't seen any like custom skins for a PS5 yet. I wonder if that's something they're just kind of hanging in their back pocket still.
Yeah, I imagine that we're going to eventually.
I mean, aren't they making a new? I thought I saw that they've actually started releasing a new like form of the console now. Like they've like an updated version.
Yeah, they did. So Sony did announce that they have a new console, like a redesign of it.
Yeah, like it's just taking over the SKU, basically.
Yeah, but what the big thing is, and maybe we'll talk about this next week. I guess some of the like it doesn't vent as well, or that the heat sink isn't as big anymore, and so the console's running anywhere from like 3 to 5 degrees hotter. So that's not good considering it's early days and it hasn't even been pushed.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more. I've heard people also come out and be like, it's not what everybody thinks it is. It might have just been a bad test. Who knows? But
yeah, so we'll see. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Stay focused on the topic, Adam. But yeah, I like the console. I'm glad it worked out. Couple ones that we're gonna go like I think that's the big stuff. I feel we can kind of just go through some of them real quick on Ubisoft because I'm sure you'd love to talk about that. Riders Republic, anything come out of that for you?
I actually am pretty stoked for that. I'm not again. It's not going to be a full price thing, but I grew up with SSX and games like that. So from what I've heard about it, because I've only seen gameplay footage, I looked at that and said, shit. I had no interest in it when I first heard about it. Now that I've seen gameplay of it, I'm like, that looks exactly like the shit that I grew up with. Son of a bitch. Now I'm interested. I'm still not going to touch it till it's at least half off, but like, I wasn't even considering it like months ago. Now I'm like, oh no, it actually looks like fun.
See, it does not move the needle for me at all. Like, I get very much like Steep vibes and Trials Fusion and those games. Trials Fusion was fun, but like just that constant like, whoa, bro, check out these gnarly like, it doesn't. It's that weird Ubisoft trying to be hip and cool, kind of extreme. It always just has a weird vibe with me coming from Ubisoft, and so I'm like, yeah, it has the gameplay of Steep meets with like the cringe of like Watch Dogs 2. And so for me, I was just like, I am not interested in this. And it's a like online game, which also is really not something that it's a knock against it for me.
Well, if it was ever like a PlayStation Plus title or something down the road, or even if it's on Game Pass, I'd probably take a look at. Although I don't actually come to think of it, are Ubisoft games ever really on Game Pass? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't. I think Assassin's Creed, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe, but like it probably wouldn't be anytime soon. I can't imagine because I imagine Ubisoft would want it to be on Uplay for the first little bit for a while.
But isn't Uplay on Game Pass?
Is it? I can't remember. I know they started getting EA in there, but I couldn't remember if Uplay's been a part of it yet.
I am like somewhat certain. Like, hey, let us know in the chat if you're watching us on YouTube. Like, is Ubisoft available on Games Pass? Let us know.
But yeah, if it's something I can get for really really cheap, like six months down the road or something, and like get a bunch of friends to want to play it with, because yeah, I could never play this solo. Maybe I could play solo a little bit, but I could never imagine doing this like extensively. This seems again more like a game that I play with friends just for shits and giggles, and it does look like a lot of fun. But if it doesn't really have like a solid single player aspect to it, if it's mostly an online thing, yeah, it probably wouldn't do very well for me because the core of SSX Tricky is the, doing crazy stunts and whatever, where the AI are just like shit talking you while you pass them constantly. So if it's you playing with a bunch of people that thank God I wouldn't be in public chat for, I guess it still wouldn't be so bad, but it's probably still not the same thing. It's not as quirky as SSX was. But it's got the gameplay bits of it down, so that kind of grabbed my attention. Like when I say I'm stoked, it means I'm not pre-ordering this sucker. It means I'm actually like casually optimistic about it now, compared to I'm not even paying attention to its existence.
Fair enough. And the other big one that came out was the Far Cry 6 campaign trailer. So it looks like we are going to be a journalist that joins rebellion against Carlos Esposito, against who I guess is like turning his tobacco farms to make cancer and is being nefarious in terms of using like poor work conditions, I guess.
It's Far Cry. You don't need to give us that much. Just tell us who the bad guy is, give us some crazy stuff to do, and let us go run around a Jeep and try to run over bears. Jesus, it's not that complicated.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I like the story aspect is the most intriguing thing. Like I kind of get like original like Far Cry 2 vibes out of this. But I don't know. Far Cry to me has just gotten too formulaic.
Well, that's what I mean too, right? Like the people who are probably going to be playing these games, they're not looking at it like, oh man, this story looks intense. They're more just going, oh, I can shoot guns with CDs now? Pff, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. In terms of games that stood out to you, we kind of covered the big ones. The other one that they went through a detailed breakdown of Death Stranding director's cut. Adam, where were you before on Death Stranding director's cut, and where did that trailer leave you off?
I have been a $20 or less on Death Stranding guy, and after these trailers went, I'm still a $20 or less guy for Death Stranding. It has nothing to do with me being against Kojima, because obviously I love Metal Gear Solid 5, so I'm currently on good terms with their games, but I still look at Death Stranding, no matter how many times I've seen different people like mess with it. I cannot justify spending a lot of money on this, because this is a game that I'm either going to love and it's going to be worth every dollar I put into it, or I'm going to hate it immediately. I'm going to feel like an idiot for buying it. So I'm still hoping that one of these days it goes on on PlayStation Plus. Just not the director's cut, just the original game, just so I can play the original game and just get it out of my system.
You see, I'm the opposite. I'm not a huge Kojima fan, which I know is sacrilege to say on a gaming podcast, but Kojima, to me, seems like an awesome guy. I like his creativity, but it's just not. It's a little too out there and too convoluted for me, and so doesn't really do anything for me. I think I got into the Metal Gear series too late. Like I jumped in at 4, and I think that's like watching Inception at the last 40 minutes and being like, "What the hell is going on?" So I think I just had a bad introduction to it, and for me, Death Stranding seems like a tedious game. Like it doesn't seem like it's a fun game. It doesn't seem like it, and I know that the stories for Kojima are typically a little bonkers, and so I don't see the story super compelling either. So I was kind of intrigued with the director's cut. Like I thought they were going for a bit of a more action orientated, streamlined gameplay, and it seems like it's done that a little bit, but it also seems like it's just gone off the rails in terms of what it's doing. Like it just seems like it's more content, which is awesome. But just like a little bit wackier too, and just more like it didn't do anything to kind of justify why now is the time to get into the game. And so for me, it was cool. I know there's some people who are super excited for it, but yeah, didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, like I find that most of the people that are going after the director's cut are going to be people that have already played it and just want to play something like a different version of it. Yeah. I don't know if this convinces new people to play it, because now the price has gone back up, so it's not really going to justify it. If you weren't going to buy Death Stranding at $30, you're certainly not going to buy it again at $80. So
yeah, it doesn't seem like it revolutionized the gameplay enough for me to justify that now is the time to get in.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like it almost feels like it'd be a great idea to put the original for free on PlayStation Plus and see if you can convince people to get into it enough that maybe they look at the director's cut version and buy it later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that might be the way to go. Speaking of director's cut, I am now working my way through Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, there you go.
Untitled review coming sometime.
At some point.
What are the so we talked about the big ones. What are some of like the smaller ones that kind of stood out to you that you want to kind of give some attention to?
Apart from the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, which really it just looks like Turtles in Time with now April O'Neil also in there, and they'll probably introduce a couple more. I swear to God, if they just put April as the only new character and we don't get Casey Jones, I'ma flip my shit. Because now that we know that there can be more than the 4, I need my Casey Jones. I need it so bad.
Casey Jones is definitely in there.
I need to beat the shit out of somebody with a hockey stick. As a Canadian, I need to do that. It's part of my constitutional right and my birthright, okay?
Yeah. It's one of the perks.
But I mean, I can't say much about it that, you can't already, like if you're a gamer and you've played any classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game, I've already, it's already explained to you. You don't need me to say anything more to it. Mm-hmm. But if we're then talking about, like, say, something like the Outlast Trials, now you have my attention.
Okay. This is one that didn't move it for me, so why did it move it for you?
Because it legitimately looks like what would happen if you take, you know, a co-op game and put it in the Saw world kind of deal. That's the vibe I get from it. Like you're trying. It almost seems like a 4-person co-op escape room. It's kind of what it feels like to me, which is kind of interesting. Now, it's also got some horror elements, so it might be a little bit tough on me, but there's still a game called GTFO that I'm waiting to go down in price on Steam too that looks like a lot of fun because it looks like, you know, Left 4 Dead, but much more horrifying. So I've always been curious about that. So something like this is no different. I'd love to play a game of this kind of thing if it was for the right price and if I could get 3 other people to consistently play it with. That would be a lot of fun. And I'd love to show you footage, but Streamlabs again is freezing. Oh, nope, it stopped freezing on me. Now I can show you footage. Ha! Streamlabs. I don't know what it is. I swear to God. We've never had these problems lately, and now all of a sudden Streamlabs, after a certain amount of time, will just freeze the bottom half of my screen that lets me change the sources so I can switch between our like video trailer section and the normal section for any of those not listening or watching the video version. We have a lovely video interface going on here that apparently now doesn't always want to work. It still records fine, but I can't change anything, which sucks. But
so now we're just gonna have like this like horror game playing as we're talking for the rest of the show.
I know, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's only a minute, so it better not freeze on me sooner, or else we're gonna be staring at nothing for a while. But the gist that I got from it, again, it's again a concept more than anything else, because I mean the gameplay didn't really show me enough to really get a sense of what's going on. But like, I love any idea of 4-player co-op games because now that I've played the Back 4 Blood beta, I've got I've got the kick right back in me. I'm ready to go back into these kinds of games, and to give me more options, I'm down. And especially something that seems like a different avenue rather than just being, here's a shit ton of zombies, go kill them. Now it's like, hey, try to escape this friggin' hell together.
Yeah.
I'm down.
For me, the ones that kind of excited me or that I thought were interesting, worth checking out, Star Wars Lego. Giant Star Wars geek. I got the Millennium Falcon like right behind me.
I mean, it's a Lego game. Like we already know it's going to be a really fun 7 to 8 out of 10 every time. They don't really have any other level.
Honestly, that's one of the games that if you are listening and you want to get like your significant other or someone who's not into gaming, the Lego games are an awesome way to get someone in, especially because they have so many different licensed properties now that no matter what your interest is, you could probably get them in, whether it's Indiana Jones or if it's Harry Potter, Star Wars, whatever. There is a game out there, and they're so much fun. So me and my wife will often play together, and so the fact that it's every single Star Wars movie, which is for good and bad, it's interesting, and I'm really excited to have that game and play it. The two that kind of stood out that were kind of unknowns for me were Midnight Fight Express, which is coming out in summer of 2022, kind of like this John Wick style fighting game. And the thing that interests me is that it was made by like a single developer. So it really kind of, I had no expectations of this game, and it looks like it's a fast-paced kind of brawler style of game. So like isometric kind of game, and it looks like you're kind of going through with like operatives and kind of going through and fighting people. I'm super excited about this game. It looks really neat. Like, yeah, we just saw some guy just doing some gun fu right there. So I don't really have a lot of details about this. It kind of looks a little bit like you've got a bunch of different fighters with different styles, but I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, it looks like a fun, like, pop it in for 30 minutes to an hour, play a couple of levels, and then, be happy with that and then go back later.
Yeah, like it's kind of weird because I get a whole bunch of different things. Like it seems like at some point, like I sometimes get like a Watch Dogs vibe in the sense of, different playable characters. I sometimes get like a Hitman vibe to it. So I'm really excited to see what this turns out like. It's definitely got me intrigued. I'm not saying that this is a day one for me, but this one definitely has caught my eye, and I'm eager to see where it goes.
Yeah, it's like a Steam wish list kind of.
Exactly.
Immediately put it on there and see what happens.
Yeah. The other one in that same vein is Sifu. That is that other sort of martial arts style game that got announced, I think, at one of the Sony State of Plays.
We've seen so many different trailers for that, and it just never shows up. So now that it seems to finally have a date, we're like, okay, does that mean we're done seeing a trailer in every single video conference that happens on the internet now?
Yeah, no, this one looks good. Same vein. I like that sort of John Wick style fighting style game, and so really excited to see where that one goes. Yeah, and then one of the big news stories we didn't talk about was that Horizon Zero Dawn got pushed out February. It's coming out, so look forward to that. And then the Horizon Zero Dawn got a 60 FPS sort of boost. So yay there.
I mean, it's coming. It's coming up 4 days before my birthday, so that sounds like a great birthday present for me.
There you go.
So.
Happy birthday! So yeah, I'm very excited for that one. And then Doki. I don't know if you saw that one. That one's a weird one, and once again, not saying this is good, but it's definitely something that has caught my attention. Kind of a weird, neat, interesting art style. It kind of almost looks like the environment looks like it's almost going for a hyper realistic kind of look, but then the characters are very much cartoony, so it's like this weird juxtaposition that I'm not used to seeing. Kind of also gave like a little bit of a Pokemon.
I was just gonna say, this looks like what Pokemon games should start looking like now.
Yeah, this is what. Yeah, definitely. But like, I also kind of got like Kingdom Hearts kind of vibe off that. Was that just me?
I would probably. Well, I mean, maybe the visual style might be a part, but I could definitely not go too far onto that one.
I just meant more like the combat style in that sort of like closed in area, a little bit over the top. But I mean, you're the Kingdom Hearts guy. Like, I just go peripherally from what I've seen.
I mean, maybe like bare bonesy, maybe, but like I wouldn't say it's like remotely close to the other.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Like, this one is, it's an interesting look, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Like, this is the part right here where it kind of looks a little bit over the top, kind of Kingdom Hearts style, but that just might be me as someone who's never played that game.
I was gonna say, yeah, well, if you're considering that and you've never played the game, well, now I'm severely questioning it.
Yeah. So, what did you think about this trailer? It's a weird one.
It's quirky enough to like you kind of remember it because it looks so strange. Like watching it again, I'm just like, man, I literally cannot tell if I'm gonna like this or not because it has all the kind of things that would grab my attention. But I also look at this and being like, man, this could be so like bland, copy and pasty by the end of it. Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. To me, it looks like either something that's going to be amazing or it's just going to not register with anybody.
Yeah, this is definitely one that is going to be. This is like the new benchmark for I think what people are going to expect of Pokemon games.
Yeah, it should too because yeah, the fact that we're sitting here and Pokemon games just don't look like this is insane. Like we have Breath of the Wild on the market. And it's been out for like years now, and we still don't have a Pokemon game even remotely close to that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Those are the big ones that kind of piqued my interest and I thought were interesting. Overall, what did you think of, Opening Night Live, the Jeff Keighley show, compared to what let's talk about compared to other sort of shows that we've seen in the last, year to 2 years or so?
Pretty standard show. I didn't think it like there wasn't anything that made me go, oh shit, I'm going to remember that forever. But it was mostly like a lot of stuff. I'm like, that looks pretty cool. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks fine. It was a bunch of like, okay, cool. There's some stuff to look forward to. But I didn't exit that going like, oh man, I can't believe that got revealed there. Oh my God, they had that show up. Like, there wasn't really anything there that I went, I can't believe that was there. Like, even Midnight Suns, I'm like, we've known about that property for a while. It's just now it's out in the ether. Like, there weren't surprises that I went like, man, that's cool. But I mean, it doesn't have to. It just has to make sure that you show you enough games to keep your interest, and it did that. It also further put along some games that we've been waiting for a while, so that helps too. So I mean, it did its job. I'm just not going to sit here and say it was like a blowaway show. It was a good show.
See, I disagree. I think it was a good show, especially for Gamescom. Gamescom slowly, but has not really been the place that you go to for big announcements, big trailers. It's not traditionally been the E3 show like other shows are. Like Game Awards typically has some big trailers and announcements. E3 does, but like Gamescom was always sort of not lesser, but you expected less from that. And I felt like Jeff Keighley totally crushed it. I thought it was a great show. Clearly had some down parts, but I mean, that's, he's got bills to pay, and that show doesn't run for free. But I think this kind of sets the bar of what game conferences need to be. I think the idea of having, I don't know, like, it sounds weird, but like having one large dedicated platform, like I think E3 showed us that a lot of game companies, at least right now, don't have enough content to justify having an hour and a half, 2 hour show. So I think to have someone, amalgamate those big announcements and make one large, massive show, I don't know. It's really appealing, and maybe this might be where we see things like E3 go, where it's not here everyone has their own presentations and platforms, but rather here is one tight show that brings everyone together. And I can see the benefits for that. Like, imagine if Sony could have a situation where they now have Xbox players watching their conference and seeing what PlayStation's offering in Xbox. Like, they all benefit from getting eyes that might not typically watch it. Like, I don't watch every single game conference show that comes out, but if I'm there because I know that there's some stuff that appeals to me, I am now getting exposed to stuff that I may not have been exposed to. So I don't know. I think there's a potential in this being a new way of delivering that sort of message.
I'll make the case too that it's very possible that Gamescom really stood out this year because E3 was that lackluster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely think that is the case. Like, E3 dropped the ball, and I feel like Jeff Keighley kind of crushed it with this one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wonder if the large, massive, every publisher gets its own show kind of E3 thing is, I don't know. This year it didn't really work out so well, and this amalgamated one show for all the publishers worked out, I think, better.
If we get things back to somewhat of a semblance of normal, where we have like this a steady flow again, maybe we can do it again. But like until we kind of get out of this funk, I don't think we can really do that.
Yeah,
it has to be more segmented the way that it's been for a while now. We have to have something more like what this show was.